everybody, and welcome to the Guardians of Christ. And this is
Pastors After Hours,
where we discuss games,
fandoms,
and the Bible,
and whatever else we feel like.
Absolutely,
right? Because that's
that's
how you do a podcast. You just talk about random nonsense. There you go. Here's the show.
All right, guys. So welcome, and in today's episode, we are discussing a movie that came out a few months ago, but still integral to talk about it. And it is this Thor 4?
Yeah, this is the fourth one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fourth Thor movie, Love and Thunder. Hannon, are you a Marvel or a DC guy?
Oh, actually, it's funny because I was talking to Brie about that the other day, and DC has just gone so off the rails as far as their movies. Everything that happened with Henry Cavill and all that. Yeah, that's going to be a podcast in and of itself.
Okay, we have to discuss this since it's relevant. This is December 2022. Henry Cavill left The Witcher because they were giving him Superman back.
No. He left The Witcher because they were wanting to screw The Witcher up.
Yeah, but like essentially the
fallback plan.
They were in discussions about him coming back as Superman. Announced that he's coming back as Superman, and he got fired 2 days ago.
They're like, we decided to go another direction because we don't know how to make a movie.
But apparently, he is going to be in something called Warhammer?
Yeah, no, he is going to be in it, and he's producing Warhammer, which is amazing. Dude, you don't know Warhammer?
No.
Oh my. Okay, first of all, it is a tabletop game, right?
Okay.
It's the one. Have you ever seen where people do like the crazy landscapes and stuff like
yes.
that? It has like the buildings.
Yes.
So you build, and it is a very expensive game to get into. Very expensive because you basically build up armies. You pick what clan you want to go with. Okay. So you have like orcs and marines and things like that, and you pick what clan you want to go with, and you build it. Now there's also this is Warhammer 4000. There's another version of Warhammer where it kind of goes into like more sword beings and whatnot, demon armies and things like angel armies and stuff like that.
Okay.
There is also a game, and if you are ever interested, I have it on Game Pass if you want to play. It's called Warhammer Vermintide, and it's the second one that recently came out. It kind of plays a little bit like Left 4 Dead.
Okay.
But, dude, it's wild. Warhammer is really cool. The game, the table, all versions of the games are fun. They have strategic games that you can also play. I think they have them on. I know they have them on Steam that you can play on your PC. But
so it's kind of D&D-esque?
There's no real like story thing. It's war games.
Okay.
Is what it is. You're going in combat and last team standing kind of wins. It's pretty fun. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited. And Henry Cavill, he's actually said that he's not really into like the whole big partying thing. Like his version of fun is having a couple of friends over and playing Warhammer.
Well, that's why he's essentially been called the king of the nerds because.
Him and Felicia Day are going to get together.
What was it the story he tells about how he almost didn't get the Superman role to begin with because
playing Warcraft.
Yeah, he was playing World of Warcraft and missed the call. But anyway, so we're discussing Thor: Love and Thunder. So yeah. So you were answering the question, Marvel or DC?
100% Marvel. I used to actually be really big into DC when I was with the Marvel universe.
You got the Carnage shirt. I got the Spidey shirt on today.
So it's more personal opinion than anything. But DC doesn't do it for me.
I do have to say, I still have my very first comic framed that I ever got back when like gas stations sold comics when I was a kid.
Magazine rack.
And it was Spider-Man. It was actually the Spider-Man where, I don't know what series or what number it was. I am not that in-depth into comics. However, it's the one where Doc Ock is essentially like messing with Peter's mind. Oh. And he thinks he's seeing his parents.
Oh.
And he's making him do stuff.
What's crazy is later on in the Marvel Universe, there's a whole series where Doc Ock actually takes over Peter's body, and he becomes Spider-Man for a while. It's crazy.
Definitely have to say, more of a Marvel fan, but for DC, for me, Batman.
Yeah, if I was going to pick a DC, it would definitely be Batman.
But then again, I mean, Green Arrow, Batman, and then Marvel, people like Daredevil, all the martial arts.
And well, see, I grew up watching like the X-Men cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Like X-Men, the Amazing Spider-Man on TV. Like, I loved those. And my brothers always had the comics that I would still. I even read Spider-Man.
They did not make cartoons like they did back in the day. Oh, man.
I feel like that's such an old person thing to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
The comics, or the cartoons nowadays are just so stupid
and I did not know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, at the beginning of those Spider-Man and X-Men, like, there would be a title, and it'd be like completely random, like, it'd be weird, and it would have like a number behind it, and it would be like, this was like from a certain story arc in the comics.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like, it'd be like Sins of the Father and stuff like that. Like, it'd be like from different like Spider-Man or X-Men arcs. So they definitely done their research. And I've heard something about X-Men is coming back with another
cartoon series.
Yeah, but like it's supposed to be like based off of the one from the 90s.
Really?
Like, it's almost like...
We going back to yellow and blue Wolverine?
Probably. And, of course, we don't know what we're getting now that Hugh Jackman is going to be in the next Deadpool movie.
Which is going to be amazing.
I just love that whole commercial they did where Ryan Reynolds is sitting there, like, seriously, like, talking about, like, Deadpool, and he's like, I really had to dig deep for this character, and I had to do all... And then you just see... like, Hugh Jackman's in the background eating cereal, and he's like, yeah, we had to pull something out of the hat to really save the next movie. He's like, hey, Hugh, you want to play Wolverine again? He's like, yeah, sure, Ryan. Yeah. So, I can't wait to see that, because, as everybody knows, essentially Deadpool loves Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Oh, man, can you imagine if we get Tom Holland? That would be hilarious.
They're starting to bring in Miles Morales and stuff like that into the live actions. That's going to be cool. Oh. So you're getting the whole... We're going to get Madam Web eventually. She's going to be in there.
Oh. Hey, you're pulling out all kinds of stuff. Alright, so we're definitely more Marvel fans than DC, clearly. I should have brought my encyclopedia book of the Marvel and DC universe. So... Thor: Love and Thunder, I mean, was a huge movie. I'm sure they made a buttload of money. At least $1,000. And there's a lot going on in that movie. Like, just like with Thor Ragnarok. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the first and second Thors. And Thor 2, from general opinions, kind of flopped in a lot of people's opinion. But it did set up that nice story arc with Jane Foster, his love interest. But a lot going on in both those movies. So in the movie, the first part of the movie, we get introduced to the God Killer Gore, played by Christian Bale. And, man, what do you think about him?
I think Christian Bale did a good job. I don't know if I like the aesthetic for how they did Gore.
How do you look in the comics?
He's like an alien-looking thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got like these little twilly things that come off.
Okay.
Voldemort nose.
So no nose?
No nose. He's a little scrawny dude.
He was definitely terrifying.
Yeah, no, he did. I don't know that one scene with the. He's like, he likes to lose his head. Well, you guys liked it a minute ago. Like, that whole scene there is pretty wild.
I feel like he kind of channeled his inner, like, bad guy. Like, because I've seen him in a lot of different stuff. Yeah. I mean, of course, most people know Christian Bale from Batman. But, I mean, he's played serial killers. He's played other bad guys. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely not typecasted.
Yeah, no, like he's all over the place. Which, by the way, Hannon did remind me. We will put a spoiler. Well, not spoiler.
parental warning, I guess, is
Yeah.
what we could say. If you're a parent listening to this, I do highly recommend that if you're going to let your kid watch this movie, I highly recommend you watch it with them. There are a good bit of themes in this movie that are not that are not biblical.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's the whole thing with like the fake gods, but I mean, other those things aside, I highly recommend watching it with your child and being able to explain to them some of the things that are in
This
it.
it was rated PG-13, right? So,
Yeah, it was PG-13, but I don't know. I don't understand what Marvel's obsession with is just of making it's like every character now. It just has to be,
Yeah. So first part of the movie, I mean, straight out from the beginning, that scene of Gorn in the desert with his daughter on whatever planet they're on.
It's a no-name planet.
And just this terrible, just like his daughter's obviously dying of like dehydration, and then in the very next scene, he's buried her and he's laying next to her, just waiting to die.
Yeah.
And then that oasis shows up, kind of like a mirage in the desert, and he goes into it, and well, no, even before that, he's praying to his god that he worships.
Rafu.
Rafu. That's a terrible name.
That was a dumb
But praying to save his daughter, and then of course she dies, and then that oasis appears, and he goes into it, and he sees water and food, and that was just, that scene got to me. Like that was a terrible scene, because Ripu was a jerk.
He was a jerk.
Like, looking at him, when he's like, your empire is in ruin, and he's like, you could be replaced, and then he throws like cantaloupe at him.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrible.
You feel bad for the guy. And then when he like strikes back at him, like, I'm not worshiping you anymore, he goes and starts strangling him. It's like,
oh yeah.
What did you expect, homie? Come on.
And then of course we get to see the sword.
Choose him. Now, so what's cool? In the comic series, Rapu's not non-existent.
Yeah.
What it is actually he watches his wife die because they're on a no-name planet, and that whole planet is just hostile. It's always starvation. Everyone's just constantly dying out because they're hungry and they're thirsty.
Yeah.
And there's no shelter. There's all these massive sandstorms. What's cool is, no, it's not cool. After his daughter dies, that's not really a cool thing to say. But after his daughter dies, he's in the desert, and he finds the slain gods. So it's actually, it's called the Necro Sword in the Thor movie, but in the comic it's all black. Which Eddie and I have come to the conclusion that the reason for some of the changes in this movie were because Sony does not play nice with other people, even though Marvel is the one that owns it.
Let me rephrase that. What my partner is trying to say is Sony owns all the rights to anything related to Spider-Man, and the all-black sword
Is a symbiote.
is the symbiote sword
It is the
of Null?
It is the first symbiote created by the god of the void, Null.
Yeah.
And
essentially, Null is the symbiote god. Right?
He is the symbiote god. And actually, I
mean, we're getting into. I mean, that movie got into a lot of extended universe stuff.
Yeah. They're just huge branch out.
Marvel is trying to get into that.
They
realm
really
of Spider-Man.
And I mean, you see in the last Spider-Man movie the little piece of venom that was left behind.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that it's a Marvel movie, but they were able to bring Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy was a end credit scene when the shifting of the universes were happening. So the fact that we do have a canon version of a Venom in a Spider-Man movie that didn't suck.
And see, what's cool too though is they can actually still combine both of them, because the Venom that he's in, that could be Miles Morales' work.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and actually
Totally.
they could still bring in Peter, Tom Holland Peter, and actually go into the whole series of The King in Black, where Venom actually fights Null and Grendel and the whole armies of dude, wild stuff. So when Gore comes across, he finds the slain gods, and what it is the god of the light that has his sword through, and it's not Null, it's the symbiote of that Null had basically sent, because he can control the symbiotes. You know, that's how he controls the Grendel and he Carnage to an extent. Carnage is, you can't tame him. But the God of the Light actually looks up to Gore and he goes, "Help me." And Gore kind of looks at him and he's like, "Help you, you know." And that's when he actually gets All Black. And All Black is he's a sword, but in the comics it can be a sword, but it also kind of covers his body as like a black robe.
Cool.
And it gives him because the symbiote kind of gives sustaining life. It heals the person that it's wrapped around, so it's actually able to help him to live eternity.
Although I do have to say that was a good change choice because I feel like Christian Bale's character was more terrifying in the fact that he was solid white in a white robe. Like whenever you have a bad guy who is like not what you think a bad guy should look like, I don't know, it's more terrifying.
You see the transition of him too, because his eyes begin to change colors and things like that.
Oh, then he gives that creepy smile.
Yeah, because it's controlling him.
And his mouth is just like black, and he's just like, yeah, he's got that weird laugh. It's like he's channeling a little inner Joker. But so just this whole thing, and like I said, I don't want to. I'm not trying to pick apart this movie, Thor: Love and Thunder, and read too much into it. But one of the things I guess from that first scene, I knew this was going to be something we would want to do a podcast on because there's so much to pick apart. And one of the first things that I noticed is, again, I'm not trying to read too much in it, but I guess kind of the world's agenda. And again, parents, like my partner said here, watching this video as well, discussing this movie, if you're going to let your kids watch this, definitely watch it with them so you can explain some of these, especially if you're Christian, or if you have any questions, you can always email us at guardiansofchristministries@gmail.com, or I always mess that up. Or you can, this will be on YouTube. You can comment it. But kind of the world's agenda of trying to push this kind of false God narrative. This idea also that, now me and you, obviously, as pastors, we worship Jesus. We worship the God Yahweh. It is as simple as a term to put. But this idea that essentially God is meaningless, that God does nothing, and you could definitely kind of see in this movie how, when Christian Bale character is like, I prayed to you, and he goes, well, you're meaningless. Like, you're just meant to worship. You can be replaced. And it's this idea that, God doesn't answer prayers and that he demands our worship and that even the Christian God is a selfish God. And it's like that.
This is idea that's propagated in our world today is that, and God is not selfish. We see that he sacrificed his son Jesus just to bring us into right standing with himself.
And it's either this idea of, and it's not so much of that you must worship a false god, but we also see kind of this thing being pushed of essentially God is worthless and that you don't need to be religious at all. Like not just, I'm not talking about just Christianity, but you see this idea of people moving away from kind of any religion.
Yep, it's a pretty big shift. I was actually listening to a good podcast on that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I do think is kind of interesting, though, is it does also, at the same time, it shows the futility of like a phallic god. You know,
Yeah.
like one of the like a false god. You know, it's like yes, a false god is always going to give you disappointment because they're not real, and it's kind of like the end credit scene with Zeus, and he's talking to Hercules. He's used to they always pray to us, now they just want their superheroes, you know, and stuff like that, and it shows. You know, all these, I mean, and that's all the way through from, you know, like the Pantheon and all these Greek and Roman and, you know, all of these different gods.
Yeah.
The people, they required the people to keep them alive.
Yeah.
You know, once the people had forgotten them, that god no longer existed. But even Scripture tells us that if no one worshiped the one true God, the rocks themselves would sing praises.
Yeah.
You know, God he's not dependent on us, but he loves us and desires relationship with us. So that's always a key difference between the one true God and then all these fake, you know, gods that exist in the world today that are created.
And that's why I also want to follow up with saying that I did like Gorn's story, that he's going around putting down all these false gods because he's trying to find a path to eternity, which eternity is the name of the god that he's trying to find, who, of course, is the only god in this movie who can resurrect the dead and give him, you know, what he actually wants. So it's this idea of we wander through this world, you know, trying to find whatever can fill the void until we find what we're actually after, which, again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But then the movie cuts to a wonderful montage of Thor working off his, and I'm going to try to do my best Korg impersonation, but trying to work off that dad bod to good bod. But it's showing
the story of Thor.
Let me tell you the story of the space Viking. But of him working out and like the big heavy chains, and you see him pulling the spaceship, and all the adventures, of course, that he has been having in between since the last Avengers movie.
Yeah,
right?
Endgame.
Yeah. When he left with the Guardians of the Galaxy and all the adventures he's been having with them, which, FYI, if you have not seen it, watch the Guardians of the Galaxy holidays.
I still need to watch that.
Oh,
I still need to watch it.
good. Best Christmas songs ever.
Oh, it's a singing? It's a musical?
They've got some singing in it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's
And a very good band performance by what is it? Kevin Bacon.
What?
The whole movie, kid you not, without giving any spoilers, is about Kevin Bacon.
Okay, well, I'm gonna watch this tonight. Then. That's my homework tonight.
But then it switches from that to Jane Foster and her terrible news.
Yeah. Stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, and but I have to say how much in denial she is in, because when Darcy's talking to her,
stage 4 out of how many stages?
and she goes 4
4
that we know of.
Ah, it's so good. I love that.
I was just like, wow, that is a good upbeat attitude.
There's an argument to make to the doctor.
Yeah, I even wrote that we know of.
That we know of.
But you see her like just essentially in denial. She's trying to go through the radiation, chemo, all these different things.
She's squeezing the back.
Yeah, trying to go.
You got somewhere to be? No.
And then you see her like she's got like a pile of Viking and Norse mythology books, and it gets her thinking, and that's when she goes looking for a different treatment method and comes across, legends of Mjolnir.
I can't ever say it right, so.
Well, that's what dude. That is the best scene ever from, I think it was Thor 2, The Dark World, when Mjolnir is trying to catch up with Thor through all the different portals. And they go, Darcy, Steven, Mew Mew. And it's just flying by. But anyway, oh, Darcy's amazing. And the whole thing is then she goes to New Asgard, which is that Finland?
I don't know where it is, because it's that. Remember the village that they found Thor in Endgame?
Yeah,
that fishing village. That's what became New Asgard. I mean, that was technically New Asgard at the time because it had already been destroyed. But yeah, it just kind of became a tourist attraction instead of a depressed village.
Yeah, I feel like they're in Finland though, like or wherever Viking people live.
Norway?
Norway? Maybe it's Norway.
Maybe Norway.
Is Finland not Norway?
I'm terrible. I think they're all kind of those Norse places. I think.
Yeah, I think they're somewhere near there.
If you know, please correct us, because we obviously have no idea what we're talking about on that one. Where's Matt when you need him?
Oh, dude, and that whole scene of showing New Asgard and
all
the cruise ships are there. And what was it? They're opening up Infinity Cones, which is an ice cream parlor with the Infinity Gauntlet on the outside.
There's that terrible play.
Oh, so Matt Damon has now essentially played Loki about as long as Loki's been playing Loki. Because he's been like in 3 or 4 movies now, like acting as fake Loki. Because he's been like, doing the plays. Because he was in regular when Loki took over Asgard and he was pretending to be Odin, and there was the play about Loki dying.
Oh, and it was him, wasn't
it? It was. It was Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about it.
Technically, Matt Damon is Asgardian. Matt Damon is Asgardian. Because that was back when Asgard was Asgard.
Yeah, true.
And then Thor, the fake Thor in the play, was played by Chris Hemsworth's brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
His whole family was in that movie. So, you know, in the beginning when Korg is going through, like,
his love interest?
Yeah. And he says, and he once loved a wolf woman on a woolen wolf.
Yeah.
That was his wife.
Oh, that's cool. Oh,
when it shows him like running through the forest, and he's like, and he grew, and he grew, and he grew. The little kid Thor,
it's his son.
That was his son.
Wild.
And Love,
is
Gorn's daughter, is his daughter. So I just
look at it. You ruined a pan.
Yeah, but it's hilarious now because that means that Thor's daughter is Thor's daughter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I don't know where Love came from, though. I don't know if that's in another version of the comics, because I have never seen that before.
I feel like that was just like one of those things
tossed in there.
They wrote in.
Yeah. Because he had a...
I mean, because they try to stick to comics, but there's a lot that they've...
I think in the comics he had a son, actually. Yeah. I know that his wife died, and I think he had a son, because he actually resurrects his wife and his son.
Yeah.
But he kills his wife. Like Gorn himself kills his wife, because she called him. She says, "You are my god," and when she called Gorn a god, he killed her right there on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So he really is a bad guy.
Oh yeah. So in the movie, he's redeem. He has like a redeeming factor to him. No redeeming factor in the comics. He's just a straight up bad dude.
So then we see that after that terrible play in the movies, which is hilarious, because Matt Damon's literally sitting there with like a spritzer bottle.
Who plays Helga then?
Hela, right?
Hela. Helga,
that
sorry.
is McCartney. Is her name Jessie McCartney?
What?
Yeah.
Is it?
The comedian actress.
Okay, see, I thought she looked familiar, and I was like, I feel like she's a comedian, but I don't know who this is.
That's her.
Oh, wild.
Right? But yeah, that was her. And Odin in that play was played by the guy from Jurassic Park. I can't think of his name.
Oh, the Whisper No Expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't.
And then they show the broken hammer, which I love the fact that they had to dig up the whole ground around it, meaning that because nobody could still pick it up even though it was broke. And then you see Jane come by it, and she's like checking it out, and all of a sudden you see the hammer start coming back together. Yeah. And do you know why? Because did you catch it in the movie?
Yeah, because he's like, I want you to always protect her. Yeah.
Good man.
And because you actually see the symbol appear.
Yep.
On the hammer, and actually, I think when she's holding the hammer, that symbol's always present, isn't it?
Not sure.
When I swear that I remember in one of the fight scenes seeing it, but I could be wrong. But I thought that symbol was always present.
I just thought that was a neat thing because it shows that now that Odin's been gone, Thor kind of inherited Odin's ability to essentially share power.
Yeah.
So part,
he's pretty much the All-Father at this point.
Yeah. And that's something that we didn't really get an explanation to.
No, it just kind of, it's there.
Yeah.
And
you have to kind of look for it because now he's able to, like, not only is he Thor, God of Thunder, but he's essentially what would be, I guess, the All-Father of Asgard.
Yeah. You want another cool comic reference?
What?
Okay, so in the comics, what's actually goes to fight Thor? It's not that they were actually kidnapped. Gord has such a deep hatred for Thor in the comics. Like, he absolutely detests him because Thor originally beats him, and he comes back. He kidnaps young Thor, Avengers Thor, and he kidnaps All-Father Thor. So there's 3 different time periods of Thor that all come together to fight Gorn.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and All-Father Thor has like the whole like Viking helmet and like the big burly gray beard because it's supposed to be like past, present, and future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's pretty cool.
And I know a lot of people now when it comes to Jane Foster being Lady Thor, Mighty Thor. I know a lot. There were some people who were a little hot under their collar about that.
There is a female.
Yeah.
Thor.
Well, I mean that
I think it was Jane Foster.
They ripped that straight from comics.
Yeah, that was.
In the comics, Jane Foster got cancer, was looking for a treatment.
Yeah.
Mjolnir chose her, and she becomes the Mighty Thor.
Yeah.
Now, I
they have a whole comic line.
In the comics, she does die just like she did in the movie, but that was straight from comics.
Yeah.
Like there was no reason to get upset about it. Like they ripped that straight from comics.
Yeah, I don't know why people were mad.
Almost page for page.
Yeah, that one. I remember when that was all going on that they were so mad. It's like that's a thing though.
Yeah. And of course, now that is really what starts driving the plot forward in the movie. Jane and Thor eventually, meet up, and the whole premise of the movie is trying to take down Gorn, the God Butcher. So overall, what did you think about the movie? Like, what was your?
So I'll be honest, the Thor series in general, I don't. Thor as a lead. No. Don't get scared. Thor as a leading. My personal opinion is I think Thor is a great supporting character.
Okay.
When he's in movies as a lead role, but in tandem with others of like the Avengers or the Guardians and things like that, I love his chemistry and dynamic, and I think it's because just the way that Chris Hemsworth plays is like he does so well with like his tit for tats and how he responds and actually like one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when he's departing from the Guardians. He's like, yes, well, I want to give you something before I go. Here, you can have my ship. Take good care of her. He's like, you mean my ship? He's like, yes. Now I know it's gonna be hard on the crew. It's like,
and then Nebula walks by.
Get away! Maybe not her, but no, like he does so well with that, and I love that. But I think Thor as like by himself in the movies, I just feel like it's almost like it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
You know, you put him with, like, even in Ragnarok, you put him with the Hulk. And it's like, it's like, this is awesome. But then he's back by himself. And I guess it's because also if you look at all of the Marvel characters, they all have some, like, gathering around them.
Yeah.
You know, like Spider-Man has, Man in the Chair, who I can't think of right now. What is his name?
Oh, his friend. Ned.
He's got Ned. He's got MJ. He's kind of a pain in the butt, but he also has Flash. You know, he has all these characters that are around him, and then you look at like Iron Man. He's got Penny, and then he's typically always in contact with Cap, and he's always, except for the third one. I will say Tony Stark in the third one kind of got on my nerves, but I also like it because I think it's good for showing like the whole thing of. Even everybody has
the one where he at the end he gets the arc rope.
Okay,
and
he's broken.
Well.
Yeah, but I do like it because it shows like everyone kind of mental health awareness. We all go through anxiety and depression. No one's immune to it. But I've never been one for like the Thor series in general. Those have always been movies I've never gone to see in the theater. I've always just kind of picked them up when they. Are on the streaming. I'm not saying they're bad movies because I enjoy watching them, but they're not my favorite. This movie, I think it was good. It had a lot of funny bits in it. Love the goats. Those are amazing.
Oh, the goats. We are going to talk about those goats.
I love those things. Yeah, and again, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Thor when he's with everybody, not when he's a one-man island.
Yeah.
Because he does also tend to try to be a one-man island. Like even in the movie, he leaves Jane Foster. He's like, no, you stay here. I'm gonna go fight him. He always tries to be a one-man army, and I like how he interacts.
Yeah. The screaming goats.
Amazing.
Dude, I don't even know what those goats' names were. But I remember me and Crystal, my wife, for those of you who don't know, went to the movie theater to watch it. And the minute those goats came on screen, me and her died the whole movie. We just laughed and laughed and laughed. Every scene. And even the background, you can hear them screaming all the time. Love those goats. That was the best thing. That and the weird relationship between the Hammer, Stormbreaker, Thor, and Jane.
You see, like he's like looking at Mjolnir, and you just see Stormbreaker just like, slowly slide in.
He's like, "Come to Daddy, come."
Oh, there you are! I was just calling.
And then when Thor is first talking to Mjolnir at first, he's
you
like,
moved on quickly.
Yeah, you moved on quickly. I look at his Stormbreaker. We were just talking.
And then when he uses Everfrost. Everfrost. What is it called? Where he's
the Bifrost.
Bifrost. There it is. Thank you.
And
it shoots him to the arc.
And even what's her name?
Valkyrie.
Valkyrie looks at him and is like, "We're not traveling in your janky Bifrost." Like, I don't know what's going on with you and the head. Like, it was great, and I love how like he has to give. He goes to Stormbreaker later when it's attached to the ship. And he's like, "Hey, we're good, aren't we? Like we're good. Like." Like, I know we've been fighting a little here lately, but we're all right? And he's like, you know what? It's time for your first beer. And, and it actually, you see it, like, rev up, and it starts working more because he pours a beer on it.
Yeah,
and then he's like he's, like, scratching a cat's chin, and he's like, Yeah, we're good.
We're good. Yeah,
that was wonderful. I love that whole thing because it's like the weapons have personalities.
And apparently get envious.
Oh, and then was it after that they go to Omnipotent City to like raise an army or try to, and in that all the different gods of the Marvel universe.
The Balbun god.
Oh yeah. Oh,
one.
that was great. I when I was watching it because preparing for this, I probably watched the movie 3 or 4 times this week, and every time I would get there, I would rewind it because I was like, "That's adorable."
I love his little face, and then when he gets upset, he's like,
yeah. And then what was it? Korg is like, "Oh, I wonder if we'll see my god."
Yeah.
Ninny nunny, and he's like, "Ninny nunny." And Emma pointed this out to me that the throne he's sitting on is scissors because Rock beat scissors.
Oh, phenomenal! I did not see that.
And the loincloth he's wearing is paper because paper covers rock. All the jokes there.
Did not see that one. Now I'm sad I didn't see that one. That's good though.
So the latest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah.
And in that is Namor, and they call him.
Oh, they bring Namor in it?
Well, so Namor is called by his people. I'm going to butcher this. El Kukulkan?
I don't know. He gets called Submariner by other people.
Which is, they say, is called the serpent-headed god. The serpent-headed god is in that movie.
Really?
And he looks just like Namor, but completely blue.
That's
like he
cool.
even wears the same headpiece.
So are we going to be leading into Inhumans then? Are they going to bring Inhumans? Because I know they tried to do a show with Inhumans.
Yeah.
And they did a really bad job.
I think Inhumans is on like their whole list of movies like coming out. I think.
Because Black Bolt would be really cool. Actually, wait. Wasn't he in Scarlet... not Scarlet Witch. Multiverse of Madness?
Yes.
Yeah, because she takes away his mouth.
Yeah, and then he...
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, that was
that whole scene was brutal.
Pretty messed up, yeah.
I mean, unraveling Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And poor Charles Xavier. Oh my lord. But yeah, so that whole Omnipotent City thing. And then, of course, there was a reference to Jesus. Because they said, oh, look, there's the carpenter god.
Is that what they were talking about?
Yep. That was supposed to be a reference to Jesus. That's why they didn't show.
Ah, that was a good call on their part.
Yeah, they get a little... The Marvel Cinematic Universe knows where to push buttons and not to push buttons. But yeah, that was the joke, though.
Ah.
It was supposed to be Jesus.
Did not pick up on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Who else was there? There was all kinds of people there. Then you had Zeus showing up and his little skirt.
Yeah, little thing. I like how he holds like the little slight curtsy thing that as he prances down.
That's Kurt Russell, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Dude, that was Kurt
I'm
Russell.
terrible at actor names.
That was Kurt Russell. Played the Gladiator.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Gladiator was another good movie.
He was pretty funny. I gotta say, especially when he comes down, he's like talking to Thor one-on-one.
Just ask me. Can I
just
borrow your Thunderbolt?
No. But yeah, that whole thing. But that led into a whole other thing with Zeus. Essentially, like, I mean, the way he dealt with Thor is like, hey, Asgardian problems are Asgardian problems, and that was a whole thing. I mean, that whole thing essentially skips forward in the plot, going forward with it, to Gorn finally reaching eternity, which is his ultimate goal, to claim essentially his wish, which every time they kept saying it like that, made me think of Dragon Ball Super. The in tournament,
Yeah.
when they get the Super Dragon Ball wish.
And if they had wished for the wrong thing, they're gonna die.
Yeah. So, but his goal is he wants his daughter, who I'm assuming, I was confused by this. I guess her name actually is Love.
I don't
Like
know.
that's her name.
I guess.
He's trying to wish her back to life, and FYI again, that was played by Chris Hemsworth's daughter, which was so cool that he got to work with his whole family in this movie.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So that brought me back to this whole idea of gore. Okay, he he has beef with the gods, and again, I'm not trying to say that many gods exist by any means in our real world.
Oh yeah, no. There is like one God.
There, yeah. Me and you, we're saying this right now. I believe, Hannah believes, and millions of Christians on the planet believe in the one true God.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, 3 in 1, 1 in 3.
That's right. However, this movie does give an opportunity to talk about a big difference between false gods and the real God. So what I want to read is Isaiah 45:5. Let me make sure I said that right. Yeah, Isaiah 45:5, which it's God speaking. He is saying, "I am the Lord, and there are no other. There is no God besides me. I will gird you, though you have not known me." Very powerful illustration that God is there. And it was like what you were saying earlier with how God is there no matter what. Whether we worship Him or not. Like Rapu was saying at the beginning of this movie is, well, there'll always be those to replace you. Or how, you were talking about the whole Zeus connection, about how him saying, they used to pray to us, now they pray to their superheroes. And it's like, God does not need us to worship Him. God wants us to worship Him. He gives us that opportunity. It's just like, the pastor that mentored me during my whole ordination thing, he would always tell me this story of this little girl that he knows who one day, she was talking to him in church, and how she was explaining to her uncle, why she goes to church. And it's like, it's not that we have to go to church, it's we get to go to church.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, worship in and of itself, I feel like sometimes people put negative connotations onto worship, you know? Like, they kind of look at it as more as like a slavery thing.
Yeah.
But literally the word used for worship in the Hebrew Bible is to ascribe worth. That's its whole meaning, is you're putting value to it, So, I mean, when we worship God, whether we're in a church singing or we're alone ourselves, in prayer worshiping, it's to ascribe value, in our lives to the one, one true God.
Now, I understand we're Christian pastors. We believe in of course, people would, could say, well, that's your opinion that He's the one true God. Absolutely, you're entitled to say that, whatever you want to say. However, we are here to emphasize that, there is a difference between the rest of the gods that people worship versus the God that we worship. And if we look at those differences, it's just like here with what Isaiah wrote, is that God's saying, yes, there are no other gods besides me, and I have still taken care of you. I have girded you, I have been with you, even though you still don't know who I am.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole thing with Isaiah is he is trying to get the children of Israel to get away from their idol worship and get away from their false teachings, to come back to God, who has still been taking care of them all throughout this time, and he's reminding them about everything he's done for them.
Which is another key difference. We serve a God who first served us. I mean, that's the whole. He chose us. We did not choose him. He chose us. Yeah. We serve a God who serves us first, whereas all the false gods, they require service and do nothing.
And we're certainly not here, like I said, to again force our views on you. But this movie gives a very distinct impression of how belief in something false can leave you empty versus believing in something that is real and satisfies. Yeah. And I believe that's where you had a story.
Oh, so and I'm not reading like verses or anything, but it's from First Kings, and it's the story with Elisha and the prophets of Baal. So this is the time where they go up, and he basically challenges them, and they have like a whole thing of meat on these, I'm going to say campfires for lack of a better word. They're altars, but they're on campfires.
Yeah.
So they have them, and the thing is he challenges them, and it's whoever God lights the sacrifice first. That is the true God. That is the powerful God. So, you have the prophets of Baal, they're over there and they're chanting and going crazy and stuff. I imagine it's something like out of a Lovecraftian novel, it's like they're doing Cthulhu type stuff. So they're doing that, and they're doing this for hours upon hours. Just making a fool of themselves. And Elisha actually at one point starts goading them. And he's like, maybe you're not yelling loud enough. You need to yell louder. It's like, perhaps your God is indisposed, and he's literally basically saying, maybe your God's on the toilet. Like, I mean, he's literally mocking them. It's like just, so sure of God, Yahweh. And he's just mocking them. So they're sitting there cutting themselves and just going crazy. Nothing happens to their altar. Elisha then turns around, and he actually starts having people bring jars of water to pour onto the altar over the sacrifice. Remember, the whole thing is that the altar needs to light fire. Yep. And he's having people pour water onto the altar.
Yeah.
At the time of a severe drought. Because remember, this is during the 3 years that the skies are closed.
Okay.
They were very limited on water. And here's a man telling you, hey, I know we have this limited resource. Take what we have and go dump it on that. And then they do it multiple times. They keep dumping water onto the altar. So it's just soaked. And Elijah then goes up, and he raises his hands and begins to pray. And it's immediate. Lightning bolt comes down, strikes the altar, and it consumes everything, licks up all the water. And all, and it's it's right there. You see the whole difference. These people going around, they were literally self-harming. Screaming. Nothing happened. They had so much faith in something that was powerless. Elijah, I'm not saying goading them was the right thing to do, but it's not pride in himself, but it's confidence in God.
Yeah.
And that's why, and then he's not acting foolish when he has people pouring the water, because after that the drought ends and it begins to rain. It's not him being prideful, but it's assurance of God and the power of God.
Yeah.
But then we see him turn around and he basically tells God to kill him because the queen's going to kill him if he doesn't. I don't understand that one. It's the whole thing where it goes, sometimes when you're having a tantrum, all you need is a nap and a meal.
And that whole story is all about having faith in what's real versus not, essentially.
And secure faith.
Yeah.
Secure, I mean, to go... And it's I'm not going to sit here and say that I've become perfect at it, because I have surely not. But to go forth in our life, facing trials and hardships, knowing that God has got it taken care of,
yeah,
and to have that complete trust to where we can goad our enemies into.
Like I said, this movie gives and like I said, it's not me just trying to pull something out of a hat, but the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, man, like the spiritual I don't know, idioms, or illustrations that you can pull out of this movie, are amazing. And it goes back to the whole thing, when Thor thinks that he needs to go to Omnipotent City to get the help of these other gods, and the illustration of Gore's whole story in this movie, and it goes back to what Zeus was saying in the movie, Asgardian problems are Asgardian problems, and it goes back to this idea that all of the gods in this movie had the inability, one, to stop Gore.
Zeus even says, you know what? I am afraid. He has the Necro Sword.
They can't help, and they can't do anything. They even, there's a joke that Zeus is like, oh, well, now it's time to give the award to the god who had the most human sacrifices.
Yeah.
And it's like, ouch. Okay, it went there. Then in contrast, you have Gore, who's heading toward his goal of reaching eternity, who, again, by the way, I understand that Eternity is a comic book character. But I found it funny how Gore and Thor couldn't be helped by anyone but Eternity, who is basically the most powerful person in the Marvel universe and is bodiless. He has no image. And John 4:24 says that God is spirit. I saw just this amazing parallel between, you've got these false gods in our own world, and then you have the one true God who has, our God has the power to resurrect, and then you have in this movie all these gods who are completely helpless, terrified, scared, can't do anything but want worship, and then you've got this one person that's just waiting for you to come to him, and how he can give what they need. So then, we haven't talked yet about, I think, to me, it was one of the coolest parts of the movie, which is the kids. Okay, you mentioned earlier about how, Gorn is terrifying to them because they're talking about beheading, and then he comes in with whatever that thing was,
Octi.
and he rips it. Octi. And he rips its head off, and he's like, well, you thought that was funny 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But then how Thor at the end, he has no help, he has no backup, he's just got these kids.
Bestows. I like how he specifically says, have the power of Thor for a limited time only. You shall have.
That man learned the importance of a contract.
Yeah. Make sure you stipulate limited. You do not get to keep this
for a limited time only. We possess the powers of Thor. And then I love how that one little girl did not pick up a weapon. She was using her bear, and her bear
shot laser beams. Yes,
that was great. So you said you had something about the kids.
So obviously, doing the whole youth stuff, I'm very much into our children are our future.
Yeah.
100%. Obviously kids nowadays, they face a whole different slew of problems than we dealt with when we were in high school, middle school, those kinds of ages. There are all sorts of new temptations, but also dangers.
Yeah.
That they have to face in our world today. But for parents out there, I would strongly urge you, or have you guys urge your children, not push them. You cannot force a child to believe in Jesus. So if you have a rambunctious child, I'll tell you right now, I'm sitting right here talking as a pastor, and I was not a good Christian kid. That is entirely Bree that brought me to Jesus in my junior year of high school. So I was 17, and when I actually came to give my life to Jesus. So, don't push your kids, but it's okay to encourage them and remind them of the love of God in their life. But so either way, what I was kind of picked up on, especially with the kids, was 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. This is Paul writing to his young ward, Timothy. He's in prison. Yeah, he's in prison at this point.
Yeah.
And he writes in verse 12, chapter 4, let no one look down on your youthfulness, but rather in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity, show yourself an example of those who believe. So the reason that was like what immediately popped into my head with those kids was you have these young children, right? I mean, they were all supposed to be super small, and then they're terrified in the cage. They're just constantly wrapped in fear. And then when Thor comes and gets them out at the end, Thor's basically like saying, we don't have an army, no better time to learn how to fight than now.
Yeah, and he even says to them, you're Asgardians.
Yes. And then you have all the kids with doubt. I'm not, I'm this, I'm that, it's like just kind of naming off all these different things, and it's like, it doesn't matter, with Timothy, obviously it's stuff that we're going to today, but it's that the way that we conduct and uphold ourselves is an example. Because you actually see Axel come forward with confidence.
Oh, yeah.
And he leads. And that was the example to the other kids, and then they were bestowed the power.
Yeah.
But and again, kids are our future, and if they could only realize how much of a difference they make if they led through their actions.
Yeah.
And the way that they speak, the way that they love, their faith and purity. I mean, that's what's going to lead the biggest revolution and change in our society, is those kids who do stand up for Jesus Christ.
And people put, if they put a little bit more confidence into kids.
Yes.
It's this idea, we still have, even 2022, we're about to be 2023, this idea of that kids are still supposed to be seen, not heard, and that they don't know anything.
Right. And kids nowadays, with the ability of the internet and everything like that, a lot of the kids in my youth, super intelligent kids, and I hate it so much because all they do is they talk about how dumb they are. And it's like, you're not dumb, stop saying that.
And then the classes that they take now at such an early age, the intelligence is, even between, it's been 10, 11, I don't know, like 15 years since we were in high school. Okay? For us, that may seem like a long time.
It is.
Generational wise, that's a huge gap. There's been a whole, 2 generations that have grown up after us, essentially.
Yeah.
But the highest level math I had in high school was Algebra 2 my senior year.
Yeah.
And now you got kids who are like in trigonometry in like the 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
Like the intelligence has doubled, tripled.
And things that they're expected to know, not just the intelligence, but like they're expected to know these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing to kind of pair with that is from Jeremiah chapter 1. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, and this is Jeremiah, Alas, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak, because I am a youth. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I am a youth, because everywhere I send you, you shall go, and all that I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. So again, with the whole putting themselves down and things like that, especially in our schools, because especially as we begin to push, kind of Christian ideals out and everything, we really need those kids who go forth in confidence and convey the love of God to everyone around them. And again, there's a whole slew of difficulties. You're gonna catch more flies with honey than you are with vinegar, kind of thing. You can yell at someone, they're gonna go to hell, and guess what? They probably will go to hell because they're gonna always believe that God will never want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
Or we can love those people, give them the gospel, and hope that they hear the call of God that will bring a change to their life as the Holy Spirit indwells within them and changes that person, into a new being.
Well, it goes this whole idea that's still out there even today. I don't feel like the walls of this part has broken down much, but it's still this idea that the only people who can preach are pastors.
Oh no!
And that the only people who can, it's like this subcategory. It's like, and then on top of that, the only people who can also talk about God are adults.
It's like told by someone that they said that is the pastor's job to lead people to the Lord.
It's like,
no. Jesus commanded you. That's the Great Commission.
Yeah.
That was not a
Everyone.
If you want to do this, that is you are to do this. You don't have to be a preacher.
All that I feel like, I mean, and again, I also don't want to short pastors, but because I mean we both are. But the other thing is our job essentially is to, I mean, we preach, but
the gospel,
the gospel, but it's this idea of, okay, we can do that anytime, any place, anywhere. Okay, yes, we prepare sermons to educate people, to help equip them a little more if they're confused about things. I mean, that's the whole point of the Guardians of Christ Bible study, is it's to break down biblical information. So then, I mean, was it the prayer that we have, when we do at the end of our Bible studies, ask for everybody's prayer request and we pray, but at the end of that prayer, usually I'm adding in, and if there's anybody who needs to learn about the Lord this week, let us each one be prepared to present that message. Because yes, a pastor's job is to educate, just like how a teacher is, but then that student learns that knowledge. What are they supposed to do with it?
Yeah.
Go home and use it.
Yeah, we shepherd them.
Same with Christians. Every one of us, I've said this in sermons before, every single one of us, most of us, can do two things: walk and talk. And if we could do those two things, we can talk about Jesus.
What was I said in my little sermon the other week, it's like we do a whole lot of talking.
Yep.
Not much else. We need to do some talking along with that walking.
So I guess where this kind of leads us to, with this whole discussion of this movie, and with our biblical talk on it, is then why Christ? Why be a Christian? What makes it different than all of the rest? What is what we call a false religion, a false god? What makes ours so much better? Because I'm sure there are people who may watch this, and I know there's people who have been asking me, what makes you so much? What makes your religion better? Okay, understand first of all, and I know this is kind of corny to say sometimes, but it's not a religion.
It's a relationship.
It is. It's a relationship.
There's no real better way to say it.
And I know it's cliche, it's corny sometimes to say, but it really is, because again, and I could not quote it exactly, but I know it's in like Revelations, one of those chapters.
There's only 22 to choose from.
Yeah, where it says, when it's talking about Jesus, and he says, "I stand at the door knocking."
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's the thing, is where with other religions, you have to come to that God and do something to get whatever salvation is in that religion. With Jesus, he stands at the door knocking until literally the last minute of your life.
You always have that opportunity to come to Christ.
But obviously, and again, corny to go to, but I'm going to go to it, and it's John 3:16. Jesus is sitting there. He is talking to Nicodemus. And this is the great thing, is yes, John wrote this, but he was quoting what Jesus said because he was there when Jesus was speaking to Nicodemus. He saw, this is something he witnessed. And Nicodemus, a Pharisee, comes to Jesus at night, and he wants to know, more about, what he's preaching. And Jesus looks at him and says, God so loved this world that he sent me, talking about Jesus, into the world to save it. To die for this world, not to condemn this world, but that through Jesus it might be saved. And it's this whole thing that yes, it's cliche to say, but God is love. Jesus preached that love. Jesus, as the Son of God, as God, was telling people, this is why I've come, to die for you, but not to stay dead, but to resurrect, which there's a whole thing we could talk about with that, with the parallels in this movie. But then it goes even further. John 3:16 isn't the only place. John chapter 4 is the story of the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. And Jesus comes to her, and the great thing is he's talking to the Samaritan. Now, Jesus was culture, he was a Jew talking to a Samaritan woman. Jews and Samaritans didn't get along, so he was essentially talking to someone that Jews would consider an enemy. And that was another great thing about Jesus is, Jesus did not go around speaking to the elite, to the religious great people. He was speaking to the people who needed to hear the gospel. He was speaking to the sinners and to those who were the outcast of society.
I was talking to one of the guys that I work with, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, Jesus hung out with the tax collectors and the sinners and the harlots. I mean, that was who he hung around with. He's like, Jesus hung around the bad people. It's not that they're bad people, they're lost. It's like, of course he did. He even says that the healthy don't need doctors. Yeah. These people need doctors. It's like, why wouldn't he be around them? Because how else is he going to tell them the good news if we avoid them?
And John wrote John chapter 4 verse 13. Jesus answered to her and said, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I give him will become in him a fountain of water springing into everlasting life." And of course, he's at a well, and he's asking her to give him something to drink, and she's like, why would you ask me, a Samaritan, to give you something to drink? And he's then goes into this whole thing of telling her, hey, whoever drinks of this water, they're going to thirst again, because eventually they're going to get thirsty. But if you drink of the water that I give, not only is it going to give you that everlasting life, but it's going to continue to replenish you forever. And it's
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, Holy Spirit. And it's, again, this idea, we don't have to give anything to our God.
It is to
our
be freely
God
received.
Gives to us. All we have to do is ask for it. Now, again, we can go to a whole big list of, then does that mean you get to do whatever you want to do for the rest of your life? No, but there are.
We also have in James, you do not have because you do not ask, and when you do ask, you ask with wrong motives.
Yeah. And this ties into the whole movie, how, again, you had Gorn at the very beginning praying to his false god, who could not help him, who was not an immortal being, because clearly the Necro Sword took him out. And then you have Eternity, who said nothing to Gorn. He did not speak to him. Gorn appears in front of him.
He asks.
And asks. He gets it, and that's it.
Exactly.
Like, just a beautiful moment. We never hear Eternity speak.
Nope.
He's just there.
He's always just...
And it's the same with Christ. He's always there. He is always present. He is always knocking at that door if we just simply ask. There was one last part, and it was the whole trio of Gorn, Thorn, and Jane and their tribulation. And this kind of tied back to a scripture we used for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when we done that episode, was James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, which talks about
perseverance.
Yeah, the perseverance, find joy always in your tribulations, because
perseverance will bring about a more perfected faith.
Right. And you have Gorn, who is essentially the bad guy. He's evil in this movie.
Bad.
And clearly worse in the comics.
Oh, dude, I'm going to tell you how the comics end, and once we're done with this part. I'm going to tell you how the comics end.
He allows the temptation to infect him. Sorta. I mean, you see him physically get cut, which, I mean, yes, I know that we use the analogy of sin as an infection, but I mean, it really, I mean, sometimes it's literally like that.
Small little okays of sin do not stay small.
Yeah. And he is a little redeemable in this. Obviously, he does die, but ultimately, you know, he's redeemed because his daughter now lives. Thor starts the movie out sad and depressed. I mean, like, he is completely just not having it. And now his whole thing is he goes through his time of realizing, you know, like you said, I almost feel like they've done it purposefully in this movie, of like playing back to like Thor 1 and 2, how he wants to be, you know, by himself and he can do everything. And in this movie, you see that a little bit, how he keeps trying to like leave Jane. And I honestly feel it was done purposely this time, because then at the end he realizes, no, I do need someone in my life, and now he has a daughter.
Yeah.
And even to the point where like Gorn's like, if I resurrect her, if I ask Eternity to resurrect her, she will have nobody. And then Jane just looks over, and it heartbreak. I teared up. She's like, she won't be alone. And she just looks at Thor, and Thor's just like,
there's a guy who essentially is the reason that Jane's about to die. I mean, Jane had the cancer, but Jane, she was told, you know, don't use the hammer again, it will kill you. But, you know, and she's going to die because she had to help Thor fight this guy. And she's like, literally, you see that grace in that. It's like, your child's not going to be alone. And
then you have Jane, who is in denial of the face of death, now come to term with it. And then I think it's cool how she gets to go to Valhalla. That was not, and she gets to see Heimdall. And then Love, how she died, gets resurrected, and then that whole part about how her silhouette on the floor is the reflection of eternity, and the whole thing about how in Scripture, you know, 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul writes, imitate, you know, me, who I imitate Christ. And then 2 Corinthians 5:17, which says that you are a new creation in Christ. And there's that whole, we could preach for 2 hours on that.
We're going to Galatians.
But you see, like, everyone in this movie get changed, because instead of looking at these false gods for hope, they move finally toward their end goal, which not all of them knew. Gorn was the only one who was dead set with going to eternity. The rest of them were just like,
what's he doing? Essentially
showed up there.
Yeah.
And it's like, once they all got there, everyone's story got conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea is, again, there is nothing in this world that can satisfy us apart from Christ. And the Bible is very clear on that. And once we get there, is our life going to be perfect? No, there's going to be hardship. I mean, we saw that at the end. Thor and Love, and I love that, they are called Love and Thunder. And how they're obviously still fighting bad guys, but they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
But this whole idea that there's going to be something in this world that's going to be able to fix you. It's you know, you'll find it, but they never did find it. It wasn't until they got to eternity that everything came to a nice closure, and then they were able to move on, and whatever we'll see Thor in next. But again, just this idea that, I mean, I hate to beat a dead horse, but there's nothing that can satisfy us in this world apart from Christ.
That's 100%.
So that's all I've got. Any conclusion?
You want to know the comic ending?
Yeah. What is it?
All right. So you have young Thor, Avenger Thor, and All Father Thor, right?
All right.
So the whole thing is Gorn. His big thing is he has actually basically traveled through time, and he goes to this planet of basically time traveling gods, Kronux, and he kills the god there and takes its heart to create what is called the God Bomb, and it is a moon shape or moon size bomb that when it goes off will kill every god across all times and in every dimension. That's what his goal is to set this bomb off, and he's actually about to do it. And Thor has his hammer and a second Mjolnir, and when the God Bomb goes to detonate, he strikes it, actually absorbs it, and gets All Black off of Gorn. So now Thor is wearing a symbiote, right? And he just blasts him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Thor: Love and Thunder. We enjoyed talking about this. We love talking about games and movies and all kinds of the other things that we're into. Well, guys, we'll see you in the next video. And for now, like, subscribe, and share it around. God bless.
Peace out, Cub Scouts.